So, to recap, the latest autumn statement says that there's going to be a new PD measure in place that's going to allow you to convert one house into 2 units. That's going to be really big. But if you want to get ahead of everyone else, have a look to see which of those councils are going to be implementing Article 4 directions that will prevent that PD right from taking place. The telltale sign for that is now, if there's any policies in that council that protects family houses into smaller flats, it's more than likely that that council will also implement an Article 4 direction to prevent this PD right from happening. If you want to learn more about the planning process and how you can unlock value out of any property, click the link below to learn more. Over the last 10 years or so, permitted development rights have received a lot of attention. It started after the recession in 2008 when permitted development rights were added to allow for office to residential. That was the headline grabber that everyone kind of understood. Ever since that initial introduction of office to resi, there's been an increase in the amount you can do onto permitted development rights. The original kind of introduction of a major change to permitted development rights was office to resi. Previously, anything that involved the creation of any residential floor space or any new unit required planning permission, and that came with its whole process of consultation, and you were negotiating with officers for contributions and things like that. Permitted development rights changed that, and particularly in the last 5 years, or even 2 years, there's been a real increase in the amount you can do onto permitted development rights. And in the last year, there's been more consultations on expanding those rights. And in the latest autumn statement, they're going to be introducing a measure that I think will have significant consequences on delivering new units throughout the country. In the autumn statement, they're proposing that you can change one house into 2 flats under permitted development rights. Now, I've already seen a few videos and a few articles kind of touching on this, as the press have kind of picked up on it, and it's going to be, I think, have a really big impact. And a lot of people, I think, are getting excited by the fact that, look at all these houses around the country, I'm going to be able to convert houses into multiple flats. Now, whilst I think that might be true, don't take it as read that any house in the country you're going to be able to convert under PD, because councils have powers specific relation to permitted development rights, and they are what's called Article 4 directions. You may have heard of them a lot, but Article 4 directions allow councils to restrict certain types of permitted development rights, not all, which I think is a common misconception. It means that only in the Article 4 direction it explicitly states what permitted development right is restricted in that area. Now, the process for that is that councils have to apply to do it, to show central government who introduced these PD measures to show that it's not appropriate in this location. You know, historically, councils in London, a lot of them restricted the conversion of office to residential because it wasn't appropriate, and there was a real demand for their office stock, so they didn't want to lose it. Now, also, I think what's going to happen with this PD right is that you're going to find that a lot of councils implement Article 4 directions to restrict this permitted development right, because right now housing, as you know, is a huge pressure for the country, and every council is under pressure to deliver more housing. One of the biggest ways that people do that already is to convert houses into residential, into smaller units, smaller flats. So that is common right now. However, what a lot of councils have, particularly in urban areas where there's a real pressure on their housing stock, they have a duty to cater for all parts of the community, and that includes families. So families need to have a certain size of unit in order for them to live there. And most policies focus on 3-bed houses. So right now, if there is a council that has a policy in place right now that protects the conversion of 3+ beds housing to flats, that protects that from changing, you will find that an Article 4 direction will be in place by the time this PD right becomes live. So this PD right is going to be consulted on in January, sometime around January, and then actually be implemented later that year. So the government has to consult on those measures and all those things and get feedback, but also during that time, councils will be applying to central government to say that the second that PD right becomes live, they're going to restrict it. Those authorities that already protect family housing throughout their authority, they will implement this Article 4 direction straight away. So this is how you can get a jump on this measure already. You might think, I can go look at any house and convert it, it's going to be easy. It's going to be a little bit more intricate than that. Like I say, councils will introduce Article 4 directions, but the telltale now will be if councils currently protect family housing, to protect them from family housing into flats, this Article 4 direction will more than likely be in place by the time it becomes live. And if it isn't, that's a big mistake by the council, and it's going to mean that people like yourselves are going to flood in with applications and they can't do anything about it. So councils have a real incentive to protect these family houses, and also incentive to get this Article 4 direction in place the moment it becomes live. So that is how you can get a jump on it. Look for policies that are restricting it, and by that very nature you'll find that they are going to be restricted once this PD right becomes live. So like I say, that is going to be consulted on in the new year, likely to be implemented later on in 2024. Now in this last year already, there's already been consultations on expansion of other permitted development rights, particularly Class MA. Class MA allows you to convert anything that's under Class E use, which is commercial, retail and other things, into residential. Right now there's a restriction of 1,500 square meters to residential. There is a proposal to change that to 3,000, which is a massive amount of floor space changing. And also the other one, which is a really good one, real lower barrier to entry than Class MA is Class G. If you have a ground floor retail unit, right now you can convert the upper floors into 2 units, but under the new proposals that were consulted on earlier this year, that's going to change to 4. So there is ongoing pressure on PD, and it's ever changing. You've got to keep your eye on it because it's changing all the time. Clearly the government is saying that councils aren't delivering houses quick enough on greenfield sites, so they're putting a lot of pressure on permitted development to deliver those housing on already built up sites, because reading between the lines, it looks like they don't trust the councils or the systems they have in place to deliver the housing they need. So they're expanding PD rights so that more houses can be developed all around the country. So to recap, the latest autumn statement says that there's going to be a new PD measure in place that's going to allow you to convert one house into 2 units. That's going to be really big. But if you want to get ahead of everyone else, have a look to see which of those councils are going to be implementing Article 4 directions that will prevent that PD right from taking place. The telltale sign for that is now, if there's any policies in that council that protects family houses into smaller flats, it's more than likely that that council will also implement an Article 4 direction to prevent this PD right from happening. Other PD measures that are changing right now involve Class MA, the expansion of that from 1,500 to 3,000 square meters, Class G from 2 units to 4 units, and also there's increases in things like Class Q as well, which is very popular with regards to agricultural buildings. So those are huge changes, and not least to mention the changes that have happened to PD in the last 2-3 years, where they implemented a whole new part called Part 20, where you can build flats on top of blocks of flats, and on terrace buildings, on detached buildings, on semi-detached buildings of commercial or residential nature. Permitted development rights, there's so much going on with them right now, and if you focus on them, if you keep an eye on them and learn the permitted development order, you're going to be ahead of so many other people, and you're going to have your finger on the pulse, particularly with these measures that are upcoming. So PD rights have been in place for a long time, but these new measures that are coming in, you can really get a jump on everyone else to say you can already get a sense as to what areas this new PD right is going to succeed over others. So keep your eye on all of those. And if you want to learn more about how to unlock the value of a site using the planning system, or learn more about the planning system, what goes on behind closed doors at a local authority. I was planning officer for years, and I got to understand what it's like inside a council, how permissions get granted, why do they get granted over others, and what are the strategies that the most successful applicants use to get consent over and over again, whilst others are left frustrated with the whole system. So if you want to learn more, click the link below, and I'll see you on the other side.